What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of 5 on 5, part of the Fantasy Alarm Network. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me today on the hot seat, none other than James Babyface Grande. Before we kind of get going here, I got to say, James, from the last time you and I got to do a live stream together, the mustache, a little bit different here. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie A Million Ways to Die in the West, but knowing that I was doing this live stream with you, there's a mustache song in that movie that's been rolling around in my head right now, and well, I gotta say, I admire the Three Musketeers look that you're going to be trying to sport here, but what happened to the old Raleigh fingers you were grooming?
So it started to, go in all different directions, Howard. It went in up my nostrils. It was tickling. It was going in my teeth, getting in my food. My girlfriend Brianna really hated kissing me at its peak because she would get a mouthful of hair. So I catered to, mostly her wants. Now I miss it. I miss it so much. It's been like a week without it. I mean, I still have a little something, and I originally didn't mean for it to go this short, but when I was trimming it, wild things happened. I left a piece here, and we all know, that's not the stash. That's not the look to go with. So I just decided to trim it all. I'm growing it back. I've decided, and you know what? If I have to go to a barber to get it, manscaped, then I'm going to, because I miss it, and I want that Raleigh fingers look back.
All right. Well, have you seen the movie that I'm talking about, the Seth MacFarlane movie?
No, I have not.
There's actually a scene where where he requires her to suck on the mustache a little bit. Yeah, yeah. I'll leave it there, and I will apologize to Brie for even remotely bringing that up. But might want to Netflix that movie. It's a phenomenal movie. It's really funny. But for that scene, I humbly apologize, Brie. I didn't mean to do that to you. Folks, if you're just joining us for the first time, 5 on 5, it's a very simple game. I sit here and I throw out a topic of discussion, and James gets to sit here and he's got 5 minutes to state his case, to make his point, to give his side of the story, whatever it might be. Now, at the end of the 5 minutes, you might hear a bah or possibly a bzzz, and that means that James has to stop talking. Now, if he does not go the full 5 minutes, well, then that opens things up for some questions from me, and well, anything can happen once I get my hands on a little Q&A. So, James, are you ready?
I am, Howard. Let's get it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I am. I'm
Is
very
the
ready.
baby in the corner? Are you babysitting right now? Is Orion in the corner?
He is in the room next door. He is talking up a freaking storm right about now.
Are you listening on a baby monitor?
No, our baby monitor currently is out of commission. I am listening through the walls.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if James suddenly gets up and leaves, you know something's going on with the kid. All right. Well, here we go. Let me get my stopwatch ready and give you your first 5 minutes. That starts once my first question ends. And here you go. Number one, given your new parental status, if you were a new NBA, MLB, or NHL player, would you take the risk, play, and set them up for life, or would you opt out for safety's sake?
So, Howard, I don't need the full 5 minutes for this because I think I'm in touch with reality. I'm not going to play, and I get it. I'm a new player. There could be, obviously some contract stipulations that, risk my career. But as a new parent, I mean, it's literally baby and mother and family first, and that is it. And everything that I do now is because of my son, and I would figure it out if that did mean a career ender or a year of no salary. I would figure it out. I know a couple of people that currently work for the company that I work for, because there is no minor league baseball, gonna get jobs there, to support their family. So I don't think I need to do that. I think there are better solutions. Not only am I not risking my family, I mean, we're putting other people's families at risk Also, I mean, look at the numbers that COVID is racking up. I mean, we're up to almost 125 deaths just in the United States. Also, we're talking about shortened preseason, a delay in the NBA, a delay in the NHL. Who knows who's been able to stay in shape? What happens if we suffer a career-ending injury because of all that? So I don't think this is a difficult decision for me personally. I'm not playing.
You're not playing at all. Like we're throwing you, you just signed for a $6 million deal. You're in the bubble down in Disney. Now, granted, the hotel room's not, up to snuff for what most NBA players are used to, but it reduces the risk of getting infected. Unlike MLB, where they've got to travel and they've got to deal with traveling to their parks, other players coming to them and all of that happening. At least in the bubble, it's all contained, and everybody's just kind of in lockdown mode over there. To take 3 months away from wife and child in order to set up said child for the rest of his or her life. Well, in your case, it's a his. That's not going to do it. You're not, you're standing firm and saying it's never going to happen.
I mean, it takes one person to sneak out of the bubble and not get caught to now bring it into this, sacred environment and spread it around to everyone. I mean, who's to say that doesn't happen? I can't be sure that that's going to be the case, and I'm not going to put anyone at risk because in the NBA's case, you are allowed later on in the bubble to bring your family with you. So at that point, if I've already been contaminated and I'm now asymptomatic and I pass it on to my loved ones, well, that sucks, obviously. So it takes one person to ruin that bubble, which I think it's going to be very hard. I don't know if Stephen A. Smith brought up a good point. Like, these are grown men with families, with needs, in certain aspects of life. Who's to say they're not going to go outside the bubble to seek those needs? There are a lot of dating apps out there, Howard, and there's a lot of people probably going to be on those dating apps knowing these celebrities are in town. So I think it really puts everyone at risk if just one person steps outside that bubble and doesn't get caught. And I just don't want to even risk, even for the money, I don't want to risk my family's safety for it.
Our own Adam Ronis actually brought up that exact same point as well, and opined the opening of Disney Strip Club. and at least giving James Harden, his gals.
It's always right? James Harden. It's all because of that Reddit. It's all because of that Reddit thread that said he's bad in cities with good strip clubs. It was the most phenomenal read ever. If you have a chance, go to it. It was pretty tremendous. But right, it takes one James Harden adventure to the strip club for COVID to now be everyone in the bubble, and then there's not even going to be any sports. Because then there's going to be no basketball, and we're not even going to play.
Do you think, because this was brought up on Table That Discussion earlier in the week, do you think that there should be no sports right now?
Yes.
Can say, you can be honest.
If it's going to put a lot of people at risk, then yes, maybe there shouldn't be sports. Maybe individual sports are fine, golf, NASCAR, where you're in one car, but when you're playing basketball, 5v5, when you're playing, baseball, you're touching the same baseball. Football, there's 22 players on the field. There's referees. I mean, it is.
And you know what? It's the exact same point that I made as well. I don't want to say no sports, but
right.
Safety first. And this is an issue for the entire country. It's not just about these players. It's about everybody and where it all spreads out to. We make our living in the sports field. We pay our bills thanks to the sports field. But, sometimes you got to look at a safety issue. Now, next topic here. When MLB does start back up, James, is it better to stay with KBO DFS rather than jump back into MLB with all the sharks? I mean, the prize pools will definitely be bigger in MLB, but are your chances better just sticking with the Korean baseball?
Yeah, I'd say 100% you stick with the KBO. they've kind of figured it out. And I don't necessarily know what they did. And all they've really done is, hey, no fans. And at first you saw, they're wearing masks, and they still are wearing masks in the dugout, whatnot. But I think the KBO is the way to go because, we got a report about Aaron Boone like saying Garrett Cole would be ready to go 4 innings if the season started today. Well, what is 4 innings going to do for us in DFS, in MLB DFS? When the season first begins, there's going to be 30 player rosters, and there's going to be a lot of pitchers available for matchups, and there's going to be a lot of pitchers who can't really go deep into games, and there's going to be a lot of bullpens. And obviously, the way that they're shaping out to be is every 2 weeks the roster shrinks, and then suddenly we're back to like a normal roster. But I mean, KBO currently has no cases of COVID, and they're playing 144 games. The pitchers are going deep into games. There's not like constant bullpen. There's obviously teams are using the bullpen method every so often. We saw last night with the K-Woom Heroes. They went with the bullpen approach, but they're just letting their pitchers go 100 plus pitches. We're not going to see that. Very seldom guys we know, like the Scherzers and the Verlanders, who are just freaks of nature, can throw 100 pitches in with 3 months off. They can suddenly come back. Their arms are they're just built that way. But I think KBO is the way to go. Plus, like, what happens if before a game you're doing all your MLB research? Oh, I love this guy, I love this guy, I love this guy, and he tests positive for COVID. I mean, then all the research is thrown out of the window, and I guess you can theoretically say it's the same for KBO, but the proof is in the pudding. We're 50 games into the season, and there's been no positive cases. So I'm personally going to stick with KBO at the beginning. Yes, the prize pools are bigger, but you can win money in smaller prize pools. You can play cash game after cash game after cash game. You can switch your approach to become a cash game player and build your bankroll for, hey, the NFL season if that's your primary DFS build. So I think KBO is the way at the beginning. I think we're going to see a large majority of the players shift to MLB. And I think your best bet to, keep in the green is to stay with KBO.
Now, let me ask you for MLB DFS. I mean, yeah, you bring up a great point as far as the pitching goes, especially early on. And I figure we're going to see a lot of people chasing the win.
Right.
You're going to see a lot of middle relievers used instead of starters outside of like those top marquee names. Is that a strategy that you would suggest employing, or would you say, you know what, go cheap on pitching, load up on bats, because that's really that's your bread and butter, really.
I mean, yeah, but like, what can we get if a middle reliever gives us 1 inning and a win? I mean, he's going to give us at best 3 strikeouts and a win, and no one gets on base, so he gives us 12 fantasy points, which isn't the worst, but that's the best case scenario. I think that's too risky of an approach, because you also can't predict who's going to follow the starter. You can't say that Adam Ottavino is going to come in the 5th inning and he's going to pitch 2 innings and he's going to be the one to get the win. So, well,
how did you handle the Rays staff last year?
I mean, the Rays also used like a opener, and then they went with their long reliever. I think we're going to see a lot of scenarios where people are starting 3-4 innings, and then there's just a whole plethora of guys throwing 1 inning here, 2 inning there, 3 inning. The Rays had a pretty good approach where they started with the reliever and went, Charlie Morton for 7 innings. We're not going to see that, I don't think, very often. I think we're going to see, the prototypical starter followed by reliever after reliever after reliever for 1 or 2 innings. So, I mean, I still think you use the starter first, but this is why I think the KBO is better off at least the early stages of the season, because they're throwing 7-8 innings if they're feeling good.
It definitely makes sense. It definitely makes sense to do it. But I mean, what are the top prize pools that we're looking at for KBO? Obviously, you've got the brand new lineup generator over at Fantasy Alarm that can pump out 150 lineups for you to do that. What's the biggest money that you can win in KBO right now?
There was, let's see what the top tournament on KBO for tonight. You can win $10,000 in the relay throw, which is a $15 entry. So I mean, I'm okay with 10K. I saw our very own Sean Mitchell hit 10K the other, and I was salivating. So, I mean, 10K is.
We're gonna leave that at salivating, right? What a great spot to put that on. I think we all were when we saw that, and that was the craziest thing. Why doesn't Fantasy Alarm have an esports team? Can we get like Sean, you, and Pemba and Cells? Can we get the four of you as like our own League of Legends team, our own Call of Duty team?
We all play different games. John and I have actually talked about this on the low. Congrats to John Howard. He won his first game of Call of Duty Warzone today. He has been every day for the last however many months has been playing endless amounts of hours, and he won his first game today. So I'll give him a shout out. But we have been talking about playing a bunch of different video games.
It's probably why I couldn't reach him when I needed something edited.
Sorry, John. Sorry.
I don't know. He told me he was going to a doctor's appointment.
Oh, well, good thing I still have Gatorade.
Topic number 3, James Grande, being our resident boxing expert here at Fantasy and Wager Alarm. What's the best boxing match you've watched since you've started covering for us? Who's your favorite boxer, and what does this sport need to do to gain the public's trust for wagering and possibly DFS?
So the best match that I've watched, all these are brought to us by Top Rank over on ESPN. They haven't been doing great publicly. They're usually averaging like 330 to 400K viewers average, and it's been like in the middle of the pack on cable. I mean, that's a decent viewership, but you would think an ESPN program would do better, and that's because there hasn't been a lot of marquee names. The first card they had was one of their best in terms of viewership, and that was Shakur Stevenson versus Felix Caraballo. And it wasn't the best fight, but we got to see Shakur Stevenson, who is going to be one of the best pound for pound fighters over the next 15 years, back in action, which was phenomenal. It's also great to see because he moved up in weight to 130. 130 is becoming a very hot commodity in boxing. The 130 to 135 pound, everyone's been welterweight, heavyweight, and I get that. That's that's where Floyd Mayweather resided in the welterweight division forever, Pacquiao as well, and then heavyweights. The list goes on forever. That's where all the best boxing has been. This generation, 130, 135, is hot. That's where all the young prospects are, and including Shakur Stevenson, who is now showing the power, and he dominated Caraballo over 6 rounds, and it wasn't even close. He won every round, and he ended up knocking him out, which was great to see that he can fill out 130 and still bring the power, because early in his career, he was just fighting defensively. He even got booed in New York. He's from Newark. He got booed in New York and said, I don't care if you boo me. I'm going to box how I want. And it was more defensive. But I think something clicked, and he realized, like, listen, I'm going to be one of the hottest draws in boxing for the next 2 decades. I need to start knocking people out. And that's what he did on the first Top Rank card. I think that was my favorite. My favorite boxer for the last handful of years has been Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Listen, everyone loves knockouts, right? The guy is a absolute machine. It's not only he can give a whooping, he can take one. I mean, he's a robot. He's gotten hit with some nasty shots and continues to walk forward. He had a stretch of 22 consecutive knockouts. He has been ducked by quite a few top middleweight contenders. I am firmly and completely unbiased opinion that he won that first Canelo fight. The argument is, there's always arguments that boxers that go forward should be rewarded. Well, he went forward the whole time. Canelo was on the ropes the whole time, and that fight ends in a draw. Not really how it should have worked. I do think he lost the second fight, but I think it should be 1-1. Triple G has been my favorite boxer, is getting up there in age. I mean, he had a ton of fights in amateurs. Now he's 36, didn't look great his last fight, did win, but he's my favorite. And I think with the
All
DFS
right, what's the
boxing.
weight class? What's the weight
He's
class?
middleweight. He's in
Middleweight.
middleweight. He's
Okay.
a middleweight. He could probably go up in weight if he wanted to. He could probably go up to 168 and fight up there. But I think 160 suits him best. And then I think we need for boxing to come into its own. We need the judges. The judges are number one. We need these old hags to move on. I mean, we don't eat stale bread just because it's the only bread we have. There are young. I'm
No.
sure there are well, I don't eat stale bread just because it's the only bread we have. But I mean, there are new and better and more shiny in every aspect of life. And it's just the way that it works. And we keep seeing the same names every week. And it's happening on the top rank cards where we see the same names. And you kind of scratch your head at some of these judges. They need to go. We need to get promoters not dodging other promoters. Just because someone has a zero and they're scared that they're going to. Zeros don't matter. Think about all the best fighters in the world. Ali has losses. Joe Frazier has lost. I mean, the best fighters of all time have lost. Just because you have a zero doesn't mean. Like Floyd Mayweather is the exception, right? He went 50-0. He prides himself on that. He's the only one. So, stop being scared to fight the other best fighters because that MMA matches up the best with the best, almost essentially on a weekly basis. That's where we need to go. I think the scoring is there. I think I've expressed it with you. I've expressed it with Dan Malin on a previous live stream. I think that there is a system in place for DFS boxing, but until the judges go and get replaced, and until the top boxers are matching up, and we get deeper cards, because I think some of the cards are lacking, where we get a really big favorite and then a pushover in the fight. It's like nobody cares for that. So I think there are things that really need to change, and I think DFS is an option. Considering we're getting like 400,000 people every Tuesday and Thursday, might I add, not a Saturday or Friday or Saturday.
Sorry, wow, look at that. I was like all into that and listening, and we actually went like 20 seconds over there. Ooh, baby. I love it. When's the next boxing card? When's your next article coming out for that?
We have one tomorrow night.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Nice. All right, let's move on to the next topic because I could literally sit and listen about boxing all day, but maybe other people aren't. Now, let me ask you. Earlier in the week, we over at Fantasy Alarm, we actually Jim Bowden and I did we did the broadcast for the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio's Diamond Awards Fantasy Football Sleeper of the Decade. That's pretty big, right? So one season that this player was the ultimate of sleepers in the past 10 years. There were a ridiculous number of names that we came up with. A lot of stat crunching there. So I'm not going to, I mean, you can go and check it out, SiriusXM.com, and go to their on-demand section, and you can hear the top 10 list that we came up with. But James, I turn to you and I say, who's your top fantasy football sleeper of the decade?
So I think there was a couple routes that we could have gone, and I think the chalk of at least recent years have been the quarterbacks. I think that's everyone's probably chalk just because it's fresh in our mind, right? Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago, Lamar Jackson last year. I think that's the chalk that probably everyone would go with. And it's hard to deny it, but I went. I tossed and turned. I went back to 2015. There was two running backs that I teetered with, and one was Danny Woodhead, who didn't make the cut because Devonta Freeman in 2015 was RB1, Howard, and he came in that year as RB40, and that was Tevin Coleman's rookie year. He was the fifth running back taken in that draft, Tevin Coleman, and expected to have a very prominent role. Well, that didn't happen because Devonta Freeman took over 1,600 all-purpose yards, scored 14 times. We really saw him break out in the passing game where he's secured 97 targets and 73 receptions. So I almost went Woodhead. He was actually RB30 going into that year. So Freeman was 10 running back slots behind Danny Woodhead in terms of ADP. So I went Devonta Freeman RB40. Tevin Coleman, that was RB38. So Devonta Freeman 2015 finished RB1 in PPR formats. So that's where I'm going.
That's that. I mean, listen, to know that he was RB30, or you said 30, or
he was 40.
RB40,
he was RB40 going into that draft.
That's a great find. That's I mean, I won't spoil it for anybody, but nobody came up with Devonta Freeman in 2015 out of all the names that we threw about. And yeah, we hit the Mahomes and we hit what's his face, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton his rookie year, Odell Beckham his rookie year. We went through, all the big names. Nobody comes up with Devonta Freeman. What I love about this pick also is that, some people asked, and, we did a table that discussion. I asked the panel over there. Jen Piacenti said James Conner from 2 years ago. And I was like, yeah, was he a sleeper, though, or was he really just drafted as a handcuff?
Right.
And to know that Devonta Freeman fell as far as he did because of the presence of Tevin Coleman in that offense, and to see what he did, that's... Damn. I don't even have anything to fill the other 3 minutes or 2 minutes that we're supposed to talk about with that. I'm actually just not so much speechless, but very impressed.
Well,
very impressed.
He didn't do anything his rookie year, which was the year prior. So, why wouldn't we assume Tevin Coleman's coming in to win the job in the Kyle Shanahan system? Wasn't the case, and Devonta Freeman took off, and 14 touchdowns and 1,600 yards later, RB40 turns into RB1.
Yeah, I mean, Shanahan's scheme that year, that was also the year that he revamped the offensive line and started using a zone blocking scheme, which really opened things up for Freeman a lot more there. Tevin Coleman has never really produced at the level that he came in with the hype. That's a fantastic call, James. I'm gonna, you know what? We don't usually score these, but I'm gonna give you 500 bonus points right now just for coming up with a sleeper that nobody else has come up with recently. So mazel tov.
I'll pat myself on the back for that one.
Definitely pat yourself on the back. You want to take a little victory lap? You do a little, there you go. Feeling good?
Well, what, can I spend those points at Chipotle, I guess, is my next question.
Oh, there is no cash value for these 500 points.
Okay.
They're just, yeah. It's more about the gratitude than anything else.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then here we go. Last topic of conversation. I know that you are a New York Giants fan for football. Are you a New York Giants fan for fantasy football? Are you investing in the new offense of the New York Giants? And if so, which players?
So I am. And I actually messaged this to John, and I think Matt, yesterday. And I think this is going to be the first time that we invest so heavily in a team that wins 3 games. Because let's face it, the Giants' schedule is brutal. They face the NFC West this year, and they face the AFC North. I don't know what we did to the schedule makers to deserve that, but it's tough, and we don't have any defense to stop anyone. And that's kind of why I like the offense, because we're going to be playing from behind so often. We have a plethora of weapons. I mean, we get started at the quarterback. We've talked about Daniel Jones on a previous live stream. I love Daniel Jones, and I think there's top 10 upside. I think his dual threat ability, if we're talking about someone like Josh Allen who has a top 10 upside, why can't we also talk about Daniel Jones, who didn't even start 16 games last year and scored 27 touchdowns and well into 3,000 total yards? I think Daniel Jones is a top 10 potential quarterback. He's being drafted 1, 2. I mean, the ADP continues to rise. Obviously, Saquon is Saquon. I think he could end up RB1 personally. I mean, when's the last time we've seen an RB1 from the prior year also finish RB1 the next year? It doesn't happen very often. I think Saquon could be in line for 400 touches, probably 100 catches. I mean, we saw him almost reach that number his rookie year, so it's obviously an obvious choice with Saquon. I think the receiving options are very interesting. I know there's a lot of them, and I know there's a lot of injury potential. I know there's a lot of weird things going on. Sterling Shepard, obviously the concussions are number one with Sterling Shepard, right? We think Sterling Shepard, we think he's going over the middle. There's obviously a chance he gets popped. But it's not like he hasn't had success when he stayed healthy. He had 100 targets in a season on a team with Odell Beckham. So I think if health permits, I think Sterling Shepard could see 100 targets. Golden Tate, like almost wide receiver 60 right now. And this is, I guess, a little skewed because he never played with Sterling. He played one game with Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram last year, and he didn't have the great game. But in 8 games with Daniel Jones, he averaged 14 PPR points per game. And if you're telling me that's wide receiver 60, Howard, I'm on board with Golden Tate if we can replicate those numbers. The Giants didn't pay him to just be an afterthought. I mean, they gave him 4 years, $32 million last offseason. So he's going to be a prominent player. We know Evan Ingram, the potential for Evan Ingram. We saw it the rookie year with 115 targets. The drops and the injuries are what haunts Evan Ingram. I mean, 17 drops in 3 seasons is dreadful. And the injuries, we haven't seen him play a full season. And then Darius Slayton. And this is why I think we could just say all Giants are in play, because Darius Slayton scored 8 times last year and averaged over 15 yards a reception. As bad as they're going to be, I think there are a multitude of options and routes you can go because, I mean, let's face it, we're assuming 1 or 2 get hurt, right? So if we pick the one that doesn't or the 2 that don't, I mean, we could be in the driver's seat. Daniel Jones feeds them the ball and they can lead us to a championship.
They can lead us to a championship.
A contributor on a championship.
Right, no, I got it. Okay, so if you're sitting there and you're drafting, in order of, I mean, first of all, would you be happy with Daniel Jones as your number 1 quarterback?
In best ball more than redraft.
Best ball more than redraft. Evan Ingram as your number 1 tight end.
I don't like to draft 2 tight ends, but if I draft Evan Ingram, I'm going to have a contingency plan, I think. So I think I'm fine with him as my tight end 1 as long as there's a contingency plan. I like Jack Doyle a lot. So, like, if I went in, like, the 12th round and took a Jack Doyle as my second tight end, I'd be okay with Evan Ingram as my tight end 1.
Rank the wide receivers in order of preference for your personal fantasy teams.
Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate. And I think Shepard is obviously contingent on health because we're talking about in PPR formats a guy who averages 8 targets a year for his career, or 8 targets a game for his career, and that's playing half like 11 games a year. So I mean, we're talking about a guy who could average 100.
You know what? I'm going to sneak in one last question here. Giants defense, yay or nay?
What? Oh God, no, just no. We don't even have Marcus Golden had 10.5 sacks last year, and the next guy had 4.5. We don't have any. It's going to be brutal, and this is why we're going to win 3 games, but we're going to score a lot of points because we're going to have to. We're going to run 100 plays a game because our defense is not going to. I can't talk about it anymore. It's going to be bad. That's
why I want Daniel Jones. Is going to be pass happy all game long. Beautiful stuff. As always, James, thank you so much, man, for joining us here for 5 on 5. Always a great conversation. Always great information as well. Appreciate that. I noticed that you didn't run out for any baby emergencies here, but I'm sure that you are very anxious to go check in on your little boy. So on that note, I'm going to thank Matt Sells, our producer, for always doing amazing work. I'm going to thank James Grande for joining us here for 5 on 5. Thank you so much for everybody out there watching. I'm Howard Bender of the Fantasy Alarm, and we'll catch you next time.